Prodeus is a brutal combination of both the classic and modern FPS games that we all know and love, and it is bloody. And I think that it's the violently perfect combination that makes Prodeus feel so legitimate and authentic. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel, it just takes the wheel, upgrades it, and covers it in a thick layer of guts. From beginning to end, Prodeus manages to feel, look, sound, and bleed just like any other classic FPS game with some modern day enhancements thrown into the mix to freshen things up a bit. It does a really good job of capturing the classic FPS look with some pretty detailed yet pixelated enemies and environments that act as a sort of love letter to the genre as a whole. But on top of the retro style is a fresh and modern looking graphics system that honestly blew me away after seeing it for the first time in the opening level. There's a really neat section at the beginning that has tons of random mist effects at night that really caught me off guard. I frankly didn't expect a game with this kind of art style to be able to pull this off. Even when running through industrial facilities and space stations, the most basic of areas manage to look solid with great lighting and fairly impressive visuals. But those pretty textures don't mean anything when they're covered in blood, and trust me, that's gonna happen a lot. All of that blood has to come from somewhere, though, and the source just so happens to be these pretty well made aliens and monsters. Prodeus has a pretty good variety of creatures for you to blast apart. Of course, there's always the basic soldier and imp-like enemies, but as you progress, you're going to start to run into enemies that resemble pinkies, chain gunners, and a completely new Slayer enemy, which is pretty hardcore. Most of the enemies and their variations felt good and satisfying to fight throughout the campaign, but I gotta say, they look a lot more menacing than they are. The monster that's essentially just an imp is visually pretty menacing at first. It looks like it would take a good few shotgun blasts to take it out, but it has just about the same amount of health as the basic soldier enemies and poses very little threat even in larger quantities. Although it is kind of a complaint towards the difficulty, that's really just a compliment towards the design, as I feel like most of the enemies are at a good spot. The laser sniper enemy was a bit too aggressive for my liking. The level themed around him quickly turned from cool to annoying, and the smaller exploding and flying enemies got used way too much towards the end, but it's not enough to drag down the experience overall. Most of the enemies can be completely dismembered, which will slow down their attacks and works as a good visual health bar system. It's a great modern addition that's more than welcome. Paired with that, it seems like just about every enemy is a walking water balloon waiting to be blown to hell, and even just a single shot can have blood flying everywhere. The gore system in this game is only paralleled by some of the most brutal Doom mods out there, but I'm not sure that they can even compete with this. The blood and gore physics work really well, and it's honestly super satisfying to completely cover a room in blood with any weapon of your choosing. I'm not going to show a third slaughter clip here because I think you get the point by now, but yeah. You'll need to use a pretty wide variety of weapons to cause all of that damage, and lucky for us, Prodeus has a great selection. You start with the basic pistol and work your way up to a full arsenal of satisfying weapons that include a basic shotgun, dual rifles, chain gun, grenade launcher, rocket launcher, railgun, and a few more. Each one of those weapons feels pretty good in combat and they sound exactly like they should. It's never good to have a strong shotgun that sounds like a silenced pistol or a weak machine gun that sounds like a nuclear bomb. So while these sounds aren't phenomenal or anything, they work well. Each one of the weapons has an alternate firing mode that essentially takes the spot of a weapon mod in the modern Doom games. These don't need to be acquired or upgraded, you get the full package when you pick up the gun, and that is unbelievably refreshing. They definitely made the right choice by not overstuffing the game with weapon upgrades and mod hunting. It can be played like a typical classic FPS, and it feels great because of it. Well, most of it feels great. There's 3 weapons in specific that I either found very little use for, or just straight up didn't like. While it's essentially a must in games like this, the starting pistol feels absolutely useless after the first few levels. The accuracy and burst fire mode don't really provide any advantages considering how often you have to reload, and I don't think that I ever used this on purpose after level 3. The grenade launcher also lacks proper function throughout the entire game. It's essentially just a faster firing version of the rocket launcher with a lot less accuracy, and the trade-off isn't important enough to feel needed. Every weapon has its purpose, whether it's crowd control, direct damage, or long-range attacks. It all has a unique function that makes it work better in certain situations, and I just never found the grenade launcher having any sort of function that wasn't done better by another weapon. But worst of all is the Chaos Caster, which is legitimately useless. You get it in the final snow level and use it to melt frozen objects, but those objects are exclusive to that level, and the weapon does like no damage, so it's completely useless after that single level. It just takes up space in the arsenal without really needing to be a thing, and I don't even know why it's there. On the other side of that, there's two weapons that are absolutely legendary, the SSG and the plasma rifle. The super shotgun has 4 barrels that can either be fired separately or all at once, and the quad shot completely obliterates just about everything. This weapon is a beast that works super well as a quick tool to melt whatever is in front of you, and the extended reload time is completely worth the damage. The plasma rifle is just as good at turning things to mush. It has an insanely fast fire rate, tons of ammo, and some really good damage. It's able to destroy anything at just about any range. The alternate fire mode allows you to lock onto a target, which isn't really necessary if you know how to aim, but can come in handy at longer distances. Both of these weapons have to be bought in the game shop, but don't worry, there are no microtransactions here, just weird floating ore that you have to hunt down in secret areas. While the weapon shop is an odd concept, I think it works pretty well, because it gives you some incentive to go secret hunting so you'll have enough ore to get some upgrades. And upgrades are also something you can find in the shop. You're going to be able to purchase a dash, double jump, and an ammo bandolier, along with 3 additional weapons that I didn't get a chance to unlock. They do put enough ore in obvious spaces so that you can buy at least one thing without secret hunting. That way you can play the game like a normal FPS and still try to get some stuff. Nothing is essential in the shop though, just some fun bonus items, so you're not really going to miss out on anything if you're not great at finding secrets. The shop itself is located on various mostly optional spaces on the game's level map, which just so happens to be one of my favorite features. Instead of having an intermission screen between levels and a boring level select, you select the levels and time trials on this Mario style map that has a ton of charm and just adds to the overall presentation. It's a really good way to go from level to level, and it kinda adds to the overall classic aesthetic. And that's honestly the best way that I can describe Prodeus as a whole, actually. It feels really good, and it has all of the classic charm that you could ever ask for. And, blood. It also has lots of blood. Everything from the soundtrack to the gore effects feel like a nice big love letter to everything that came before it, and if you didn't try Prodeus during its extended time in pre-release, then I would definitely pick it up now. It's by no means perfect, but it is probably one of the best FPS games that I played since Doom Eternal. I had a whole lot of fun with it, and I'd imagine that you will too. I mean, it's on just about every platform available, there's a Switch version coming soon, and it's only like $25 for a full campaign, snap map, and a full multiplayer, which I didn't touch on in today's video. So go ahead, try out Prodeus if you feel like it, and be sure to leave a like on today's video if you enjoyed. This is only one of, like, 3 videos I've made branching out from BS Software family of games, so it would really help out if you could show some support so I can keep up the content shift. I do plan on returning to my normal content after this, so don't worry if this wasn't your thing. I hope you liked the video, I put a lot of work into it, so hopefully it's good. That's just about all I have to say for today's video, though, so thank you all for watching. Until next time.